Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about Pillion. I guess it's kind of ironic that I saw this movie after Wuthering Heights because that movie failed to deliver on a lot of fronts for me, as far as an engaging romance, as far as like a kind of smutty little movie, as far as a something tragic that it was pushing itself as that I didn't feel. However, Pillion accomplished all those things in a package I wasn't expecting. And it very smartly, I think, uses humor as kind of a shoehorn in for more serious elements, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So this movie is about a guy. His name is Colin, played by Harry Melling, who was Dudley in Harry Potter. And I think that's what most people know him as. That's kind of it. But if you haven't seen any of his recent work, I did see The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is an anthology Western film. And he has a really poignant little short story in that, and he did an amazing job. One of those performances that it's very understated, and as soon as I saw it, I had to look up the actor, and I'm like, oh my god, it's fucking Dudley. So if you have any hang-ups about that, please don't. That was years ago. Not that he was bad as Dudley. He did exactly as advertised, as that role needed. But he delivers some exceptional work here. Anyway, sorry, I haven't even gotten to the synopsis yet. So, Colin, he's an introverted guy. He sings in a barbershop quartet with, it looks like, the bulk of his family in a little pub, but also he delivers parking tickets, so he's got like, a job he's not passionate about, but he can do well enough, and he's got quite a good singing voice. I wonder if that was actually him singing in the movie. It looked like him, but it's movie magic. I don't know. Anyway, Colin is, as I mentioned, introverted, and his mom, bless her heart, keeps trying to set him up with other men because he is gay. And it's just not working out, he lives at home with his parents, and after like a failed date, he comes home early, and you can tell the parents are kind of like, oh, he's home early. This didn't turn out too well. However, at one of the pubs he sang at, he sees a biker played by Alexander Skarsgård, and his name is Ray. And out of the blue, Ray just walks up to Colin as Colin's trying to pay out for his tab, and he makes Colin buy him some chips or crisps, and that's kind of it. They exchange a few words, but Ray is very kind of monosyllabic. He doesn't say a whole lot. His looks kind of say everything, and Skarsgård is very good at that. If you watch my review for The Moment, I kind of questions why they hired Skarsgård for like a kind of Spinal Tap comedy. And it may have sounded like that I didn't think Skarsgård was a good actor, and that's not the case at all. I think he's a pretty phenomenal actor given the right role. And this role is quite exceptional. We've seen him do the shirtless action shtick, and that works for him. Trust me, he can pull that off. But this is a lovely little role that's also feels very understated, and it could go horribly wrong if acted by the wrong person. If someone else were in that role and just wasn't as adept as he is at movement, at delivering looks, and frankly about dominating. Because at the crux of it all, this is about a type of BDSM relationship, the dominant and submissive relationship. So again, I have not gotten through the synopsis yet. But you know what? I'm excited to dive into this movie a little bit. I'm just going to say up front, I really loved it. I thought it was great. Anyway, so Colin and Ray finally go out, and it becomes aware pretty fast that Ray is looking for a sub and he's a dom. And Colin is a little unsure of this at first, but he's not exactly hating it. And I mean, it helps you have, like, it's Alexander Skarsgård. Like, come on. The movie very smartly uses humor, again, as I mentioned, to kind of pave the way for you to see into this world. And Colin is very much like the audience. You know, he tries to make light of a situation. There's awkward kind of small talk. It's actually a pretty funny movie at the start. I'd say the first third, first half even, there's quite a few laughs. And I love seeing this with an audience, by the way. It was fantastic to sit in a theater and watch this with people. Because Colin's experience was our experience. It was a shared experience among the audience. And we were kind of nervously laughing and then, you know, guffawing at some points. Do people really guffaw? I don't know. I was looking for another word without saying laughter again. But as funny as this movie is, it's also equally fascinating to dive into this world. Now, the movie's not claiming to cover, like, this is how every, you know, dom and sub relationship goes. No, this movie follows a biker gang where all the bikers are basically doms, you know. Hence the title, Pillion. If you don't know what a pillion is, that's like a little back seat, you know, for a passenger behind a motorcyclist. And it's a very apt title. The title of the book it's based on, I think, is called Box House. It's called Box Hill. I was close. It was very, Box House, Box Hill. And apparently it's a 70s period piece. But I like the fact this is modern day. Can't talk, sorry. It's 2:30 right now. I gotta quit recording these at night. Or, you know what I mean. Anyway, so we follow Colin and Ray's relationship throughout the film. And it's an interesting dynamic between the two. Because some of the dom sub stuff is a lot of fun. It paves us the way for laughter. It paves the way for some really hot, smutty scenes. You know, definitely much hotter than anything you've seen in Wuthering Heights. And for those of you who are a fan of Heated Rivalry, I'd say you see a little bit more skin as far as that goes. Now, the argument can be made as like, oh, which scene is hotter? Well, that's all, you know, perception, how it's shot, stuff like that. But you actually see more in this movie for what it's worth. You know, we all know the MPAA is afraid of penises, but I think you get enough here. At least enough to tell the story it's trying to tell. And it's a necessity as well, because along with like the fun kind of raunchy stuff, there's some really, you know, heart-shattering drama at the center of this too. It blindsides you with how dramatic this movie can be. And I'm not going to get too spoilery in this review. I think it's more fun to kind of discover the characters and the situations for yourself. But in watching it, I felt some of those that emotions I felt when I could be jealous about another partner, like the thought of my partner, you know, with somebody else. And granted, as I've gotten older, I don't really feel that way anymore. So this is stuff I felt maybe when I was a young man in my early 20s or something like that. But that's fine because Colin is inexperienced. You know, he doesn't really know any way. So he's experiencing these kind of forms of jealousy and ownership, I guess you could say, over Ray. Who seems more dismissive about it, but also very caring in his own way. He does things, and the biker gang does things. Like, for example, Colin's birthday is in this movie, and at first he kind of shrugs it off, and he's like, no, you're gonna make dinner like you always do, and then that's the day. But then the biker gang shows up and surprises him with a ride throughout town and a little party. So stuff like that he didn't have to do, and he did. So we know that Ray cares, and it's a credit to Skarsgård that he's such an enigmatic person that we don't just dismiss him right off the bat, because Colin has to deal with some hard stuff in this movie too. One of those things is his family. He lives with his parents, but his mother is sick. They don't get in too many of the details, but it's clear that she has a shaved head and she'll often wear wigs and stuff like that. And one of the relationships I really loved in this movie was Colin's relationship with his mother. She obviously cares about her son a great deal. Like, she tried to set him up on dates. And now she hears a little bit about this Ray character, and all she's really told is that, it's Colin's boyfriend, and, Colin stays over at his place and stuff like that. But when the mother gets a little taste of what that relationship actually is, she wants to challenge it. Because her scenes are finite, but they're integral. She doesn't, well, we as the audience don't know much how much time she has left in this world, but she wants to make sure she's leaving her son in good hands, in a good place. And so obviously she's going to be protective about that. And again, there's probably only a handful of scenes with Colin and his mom, even the rest of his family, but they're so vital to the script and so full of heart and emotion that it's really kind of makes up the backbone, the foundation of this Dom-sub relationship, and kind of where Colin is coming from, why he would even want to do this, why that makes him feel accepted. And to go back to Ray, initially he seems dismissive of his emotions towards Colin and stuff like that, and he's like, no, you're just another sub to me. That's kind of it. That's the aura he's trying to put off. But he'll do things that suggest otherwise. I mentioned the birthday party, but there's a scene where they're sleeping next to each other in bed, which usually Ray doesn't let him do. But in the middle of the night, he comes up to Colin and like cuddles him while he's asleep, little things like that. And Ray has a tattoo of 3 names on his chest. I want to say it's like 2 girls and a guy's name. But to me, they don't get into what the tattoos mean. But to me, that was almost suggestive of like, maybe that was another life Ray had. Who are those people? What happened to those people? Is that what led him down this road to being, the Dom sub motorcycle gang he's in? I don't know. It's all a brilliant little piece of world building that just adds flavor to the story. And the story, as I mentioned, it starts off funny enough, and those real hot and heavy scenes too, but it's actually really introspective. I think anyone who has seen and appreciated movies like Her or Call Me by Your Name, where it's about a protagonist who's very lonely, very isolated, introverted, and that allows him to open himself up for a relationship that may not be good for him, in the long run, but that's what he needs right now, and that's the story being told right now. And I think that really paves the way for some beautiful scenes later on in the movie. So really heart-wrenching scenes too. It's surprising how much emotional weight there is to be found in this movie, especially if you watch the trailer or as the start of the movie is, because we like Colin and Ray together, but we know Colin, we want the best for Colin, ultimately. We feel like his mom does, we just want him to be taken care of and loved, and so does he. And we're not sure where Ray is coming from. We like Ray because it's Skarsgård, but we want better for Colin. So I think me just telling you that means the movie succeeded, the story succeeded. I think that's a beautiful thing about a romance of sorts, that you not only buy into the romance being sold, you buy into the character and his family, but you want the best for those characters, and I think that's something that the best romance stories can do. And there's so much wrapped up in this package. There's the comedy, there's the smut, there's the introspection, and it kind of caught me off guard. This movie, I know it was reviewed well, and I was looking to have some laughs and, a little bit of heart whipped in, but I think the pacing is very nice. It's very deliberate, and it never drags. At least for me, it didn't. I was always constantly driven by the characters and the situations and what would happen next. And again, a credit goes out to Harry Melling and Alexander Skarsgård for their portrayals. They've crafted two characters that feel genuine, that are sometimes funny, and you might look at a picture or, you know, paint a picture in your head, and there's me going to Professor X again, and and think like, how would those two ever enter in a relationship together? But they do, and you see it happen. You see it unfold in almost real time, and you're like, I buy that immediately. I totally buy these two together. So overall, yeah, it was a beautiful story, you know. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. I definitely recommend it. Yeah, it was fantastic. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.